Hey, yo. You're gonna be cool. No, we're not gonna be cool. Markie here with some pantomime, really, to make the point, really, that if you suffer from certain forms of neurodiversity, particularly dyspraxia, but also some forms of autism, some forms of ADHD, where you are either A, prone to be muddled, or particularly clumsy, then a top tip for today is give up the idea of trying to be cool. Okay, why am I saying this? What is this man rambling on about? Okay, let me talk about myself. Okay, so I have dyspraxia, which is sometimes called developmental coordination disorder, which means I can fumble around, sometimes I can't kind of even walk in a straight line. That tends to be worse if I'm trying to do two things at once. So for example, my driving is not good if I have a passenger and I'm making conversation, or if I'm with somebody, just the very act of being with somebody and the whole kind of social communication thing takes up a big part of my brain power. So if I'm with somebody and we're doing a task together, I'm more likely to make errors and fumble and drop things than if I'm on my own. So if I go for a walk with somebody and we're deep in conversation, I'm more likely to stumble. Or if we're at a place where you need to concentrate, like, maybe navigating the tube or something like that, I can do that far easier on my own. If I've got somebody with me and I'm concentrating on, making conversation and all the social stuff, and where, are they, not losing contact with them, and where are they in relation to me, that will make that whole task much more difficult. So in a clumsy, I'm kind of talking in a kind of clumsy kind of way here, but that's kind of apt, really, I suppose, because I'm talking about kind of clumsiness, awkwardness, difficulty in concentration, fumbles, errors. Okay, so I have dyspraxia. So that's one of the things that that kind of feeds into this. I also have dyscalculia, which is numeric dyslexia, which doesn't mean I get numbers the wrong way around, by the way. That's just when people talk about people getting letters the wrong way around, that's just a very small part of dyslexia. That's not, so just because somebody doesn't get letters the wrong way around doesn't mean they're not dyslexic. That's a big myth. So numeric dyslexia, dyscalculia, I get in the middle with anything sequential. So often I find it quite hard to tell the time. If you ask me to tell the time, I'll look at my watch for ages. And if something else is going on, again, if there's a distraction going on, I'll find it quite hard to read the time. Okay, so if I'm having a conversation and looking at my watch, there's a good chance I won't take in what I've read on my watch, and I'll have to look at it again. Okay. Also, I get muddled around times and dates. So quite often weird things, like I will say, if I'm thinking into the future and I'm talking to you about next Tuesday and something that's going on next Tuesday, I might start saying tomorrow. And in my mind, I mean next Tuesday, but I say tomorrow because, I'm projecting to a future date, and that's the date I'm thinking of. So I end up saying tomorrow, or I end up saying the wrong date, or I'll get numbers mixed up, I'll get dates mixed up, all that kind of thing. So games are a nightmare. Okay, card games are a nightmare. Magic tricks, don't ever try and do a card trick on me, because I won't get the significance of the card trick. You can try and do all this stuff with cards and then say, ta-da, the ace of spades, and I'm like, well, why wouldn't it be the ace of spades? So in my rambling way, what I'm getting at really is that a lot of neurodiverse conditions, including autism, can result in disorganization and clumsiness. So clumsiness is associated with autism, as is disorganization. Disorganization can also be associated with ADHD, and these things cluster. Okay, so if you suffer from a neurodiverse condition, whether it be ADHD, autism, dyslexia, dyspraxia, dyscalculia, there is a likelihood that you will have symptoms that make you kind of muddled and or clumsy. Okay, and that puts you, puts you at a disadvantage. Makes things more difficult, clearly. Yeah. So this is a lesson that took me 30, 40, however many years to learn, is to stop trying to be cool. And also to try and stay away from groups of people and relationships where there's a lot of put down humour or a lot of kind of mock. I mean, this is not a good thing anyway for anyone, but for somebody with these kinds of conditions who does suffer from disorganization and clumsiness, if the people around you are going to pull you up for that every time and kind of ridicule you for that, it's not a good environment for you to be in. Okay, so for years and years, I tried to be kind of part of the gang and tried to be cool and stuff like that, but it eventually just dawned on me, I ain't never going to be cool. Okay, I'm never going to be cool. I'll always blow it on some level or other. And like just stuff I've done, acting roles. I mean, I remember doing my stage debut. I was actually in the lead as well, and I kind of did this kind of brilliant, very dramatic ending and paced off stage and managed to kind of fall over the scenery on the way out. So what do you do? How do you kind of get around this? Well, I think you have to be humble. And you have to not take yourself too seriously, and also be kind of upfront that you will make mistakes, you will make errors, you will say the wrong thing from time to time, and that that's not the end of the world. And also not let anyone else make a big deal of that, because that can be really unkind, basically. So don't stand for anyone kind of being harsh with you when you make an error. You can make a joke of it, you can use a bit of self-deprecating humour, but at the same time have some holding a core of respect for yourself and expecting that from other people as well, that there can be some humour in my muddle, in my fumbles, but don't treat me like a fucking idiot. Okay, and remember that you don't talk to yourself like you're a fucking idiot either, because you're not. Because generally speaking, people with neurodiverse conditions are intelligent, creative. Some of the most important people in history have had neurodiverse conditions. Okay, so don't for 1 minute kind of think that you're a fool. Okay, you might be very spiky, and we talked about this in other videos. So spiky means that there's areas where you function on a very high level, and there's areas where you function on not such a high level. And this is where it kind of gets complicated, because we could be high achievers, but we can still blunder and bumble and make all kinds of errors and mistakes. Okay, so being cool. Trying to be cool, and also people in glass houses shouldn't throw stones. I mean, in my younger days, I was part of peer groups where we would all pounce on each other for the slightest sign of weakness or vulnerability or anything like that. We would be really we kind of told ourselves it was humour, but it was quite nasty. And a very strong competitive element. So we would put each other down and things like that. And it was very difficult to kind of be vulnerable, because that would just be picked on and used as humour. So if you have these conditions, my advice is create an environment and a peer group and a way of being where it's kind of okay to fumble. You can kind of laugh it off. And you haven't got to try and pretend to be cool, or, I mean, probably one of the main reasons I gave up smoking was because, I used to fumble around with it so much. It was, trying to smoke and talk. There are things like cocktail, parties where there's food. I find that really difficult. I find it hard enough kind of, navigating the kind of the social nuances of talking to people and meeting them, but, trying to kind of, hold a drink and kind of eat a vol au vent at the same time is just like, it's just too much. Okay, so it's kind of like know your limitations, know where you're kind of likely to fumble, and give yourself permission to fumble. and don't set yourself up for failure by trying to be, Captain Cool. It just doesn't work, okay? Don't try and be Captain Cool. Don't try and be the person that dishes out put down humour. Basically be gentle with yourself and others is the advice that I would give you. And on a more practical level, maybe we'll talk about this more in another video, is reduce the fumble factor as well, as much as you can. I mean, stuff like this is simple things like doing up a coat and walking, and talking to somebody. Those three things all at the same time. It's like, and sometimes I'll take longer to gather my stuff together, and people want to rush you and stuff like that. So one thing is as much as possible, try and reduce if you can, kind of try and think about what you wear and what you carry, so that it reduces that fumble factor. But also, give yourself time. I mean, I think, for example, when I go to the doctors, I'm quite often carrying a couple of bags and a bike helmet and stuff like that. Don't get me started on bike helmets. And when they call you, they kind of they do this kind of thing, don't they? Doctors and nurses, they call you from the waiting room, and then they disappear. It's like you hear a voice calling you, and then poof, they've gone down a corridor. It's like the white rabbit in Alice in Wonderland. You go, where the hell did they go? They don't give you time to kind of gather yourself and come along, and it's like, fuck you. Take your time. If it takes you a few moments to gather your bags and things together, be calm. Don't rush. Okay, because if you've got dyspraxia, you've got something else that's causing you that extra fumble factor, take your time. Okay, if you need a bit more time to do stuff, then take it. I mean, I remember little things like I was with somebody in a pub, and it was a friend of a friend I took to a pub. So I was kind of like looking after somebody and making somebody welcome, and they wanted to come to, they were from abroad, they wanted to come to a traditional British pub, and we'd had a drink, and we were kind of leaving, and I was kind of putting my coat on. They'd gone, they were out the door. Didn't look over their shoulder, kind of, I'm ready, woof, off you go, really pissed me off, I was really quite hurt by that, because it's like, you just fucked off and left me behind. You didn't even. So I guess, developing a thick skin maybe as well, because that person didn't mean anything by it. They're just, some people are just really quick. Some people are very, physically able, and they don't take the time it takes me to do stuff like that. So why would they know, really? But I was actually left feeling quite hurt, really. So, a rambly, confused, disorganized video, but I hope you can take something from it. The other thing I can remember is, briefly, I was in the police. I was a special constable, and that was police work can be quite good for people with ADHD, but not great for people with dyspraxia. For a start, putting the uniform on and the epaulets and stuff used to take me ages just getting that right, and then getting out of the car quickly to respond to something. And I would find that, my colleague would be out the car and kind of 10 yards down the road, and I'd be fumbling in my, over my hat, and it was just a nightmare, really. And maybe talking on the radio at the same time, all those kinds of things. So doing lots of things at the same time just is really not good for me. So hope that's kind of giving you a flow. So the abiding message that I want to put across really from this is, if you have a condition that makes you clumsy and disorganized, in as many ways as you can, be kind and patient with yourself, and think about how you manage that, and think about the environment that you're in, and the group culture, the peer culture, social milieu you're in, and what you give out as well. And my recommendation would be to kind of, create an environment that is gentle and enables you to be who you are with a minimum amount of stress. And lesson for me, as much as for you, really, is don't allow other people to get to you when they're not sensitive to these things, because they don't think anything of it. And these things can be deeply hurtful because they go back to childhood, and this, affects self-esteem, Not being able to be, good at sports affects self-esteem. I was the kind of the classic last kid to get picked for the teams. So there's some wounds there. There are some wounds, and I'm working on that. Just because I'm a therapist doesn't mean I don't have wounds and I don't have things that I'm working on. And I can allow those wounds to get triggered, whereas actually what I need to do is remind myself that other people, they don't mean, 99.9% of the time they didn't mean any offence or any hurt. They weren't really being insensitive, but that's how it felt to me. So I hope that was helpful. So don't be cool. Don't fill your life with things to fumble with. Give up smoking and Rangi Marie.